The sky over Earth's major cities darkened as strange, metallic shapes descended from the heavens. At first, people thought it was just a bizarre storm, an anomaly in the atmosphere. But when the first ship landed in the heart of Paris, and the ground shook with a force unlike any earthquake, there was no mistaking it. The invasion had begun. Alex Ramirez, a former Special Forces soldier turned recluse, was on a quiet hiking trip in the mountains when the alarms went off. He had been preparing to leave his past behind, living alone in the wilderness after a traumatic tour of duty. But that was before the world changed forever. His radio crackled to life with frantic reports. Unidentified ships, massive, descending over major cities. The voice on the other end of the line was frantic. "It's not a military exercise. It's real." Alex gritted his teeth, staring at the towering peaks in front of him. He had heard of conspiracies, whispers of alien life, but he never thought it would be happening now. It wasn't just a single ship or a few isolated contacts. It was an invasion, a full-scale assault. Without hesitation, he grabbed his gear and started moving toward the nearest town. The adrenaline kicked in as his military instincts took over. He knew he couldn't fight this alone, but he wasn't going to sit by and let humanity be wiped out. The world needed to know how to fight back. As he reached the outskirts of the town, he saw the first signs of chaos. People were running, some in cars, others on foot, desperate to escape. The bright lights of the alien ships filled the sky as they hovered overhead. People screamed and scattered as the ships opened, and the ground shook with the force of their landing. The air grew thick with the scent of burning debris and fear. Alex's heart pounded as he crouched behind a low wall, watching the invaders disembark. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Tall, imposing figures with dark, featureless armor and weapons that crackled with alien energy. The creatures moved with purpose, as if they were accustomed to the chaos they were causing. Alex knew immediately, this was no ordinary invasion. These beings weren't here to conquer. They were here to hunt. He saw the first humans being dragged into the ships. The invaders didn't care about enslaving them or taking over the planet. They were hunting for sport, using humans as their prey. The people were mere trophies in their twisted game. Panic surged through Alex's veins. He had to act fast. He couldn't stand by and watch people be slaughtered. And he knew that without a plan, humanity didn't stand a chance. The aliens, as deadly as they were, clearly underestimated the human will to survive. If he could gather a few others, organize a resistance, they might just stand a chance. Move. Alex whispered to himself, crouching low as he darted between buildings, careful to stay out of the aliens' line of sight. He wasn't sure how he was going to stop them, but there was no time to waste. The world had just become a hunting ground, and he was determined not to let humanity go down without a fight. As he found a group, the days following the invasion were a blur of chaos and terror. The alien ships were everywhere, hovering in the skies and landing in cities and towns, claiming new territories as their hunting grounds. The world was paralyzed with fear. Governments crumbled, and militaries scattered, unable to put up any meaningful defense against the invaders. Humanity was on the brink of extinction, and many believed that this was the end. But Alex Ramirez wasn't going to let it end this way. In the days after the initial chaos, Alex found himself rallying a ragtag group of survivors in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of a small town. There were no grand speeches, no fanfare, just the cold reality that they needed to survive. The group was a mix of ordinary civilians, farmers, teachers, doctors, and a few former soldiers who had managed to escape the initial wave of attacks. Most were frightened, unsure of what to do next, but Alex had a plan. He had seen how the aliens hunted their prey and knew that humanity's only chance was to adapt, to become the hunters. "Listen up." Alex's voice cut through the fear that gripped the group. "We're not going to wait around to be killed. These things think they can just come here and hunt us like animals. But they're wrong. We have something they don't. Our resourcefulness. our will to survive. And we're going to use that to turn the tide." He could see the hesitation in their eyes, the disbelief. It was hard to believe that they stood a chance against the advanced alien forces. But Alex had learned the hard way during his years in the military. You never gave up, no matter how impossible the situation seemed. "We need to find out everything we can about their weaknesses," Alex continued. "Their technology, their hunting methods, everything. The more we know, the better we'll be able to strike back." The survivors nodded, and the next few days were filled with desperate, frantic planning. Alex and a few volunteers scouted the outskirts of the town, keeping their distance from the Scythian hunting parties, looking for anything useful. They managed to find a few scattered alien tech pieces, damaged but still usable. It was a small victory, but it sparked something in the survivors. They weren't helpless anymore. Meanwhile, the Typhians, with their towering figures and alien technology, were relentless. They patrolled the streets, picking off anyone they found. Their hunting methods were precise and brutal, using advanced tracking systems to follow the human scent, leaving little room for escape. But Alex and his group were learning quickly. They had to move quietly, stay hidden, and strike when the Scythians least expected it. One night, Alex gathered the group together, laying out his plan. They had identified a small Scythian encampment nearby, where a few of their soldiers were stationed. It wasn't much, but it was a start. If they could take out the aliens' communications or disable their technology, it would slow them down and give the humans a fighting chance. "You won't have to fight alone," Alex assured them. "We move in and out quickly. If we disable their comms, it could buy us enough time to get more intel on their operations." The group was silent at first, fear evident in their eyes. But there was something else there too, a spark of defiance. The idea of taking the fight to the aliens, instead of waiting to be hunted, was powerful. "We're doing this together," one of the survivors, a young woman named Emma, said, her voice firm. "We have nothing left to lose." Alex nodded, feeling the weight of leadership settle on his shoulders. The plan was risky, but it was their best shot. They had to act quickly. If they didn't start fighting back now, humanity would be doomed to extinction. That night, under the cover of darkness, the group moved out. Alex led them to the alien encampment, guiding them through narrow streets and alleyways. The alien presence was heavy, with Scythian soldiers patrolling the area. But Alex's team had the advantage of knowing the terrain and using their human ingenuity to remain undetected. They reached the Scythian comm station, hidden behind a series of alien vehicles. Alex signaled for silence, his heart pounding in his chest. One by one, they moved into position, taking out the few guards with swift, precise movements. Emma, a former tech specialist, quickly got to work on disabling the comm systems, while Alex and the others kept watch. Every second felt like an eternity, but when Emma signaled that the job was done, they knew they had succeeded. The team pulled back into the shadows, adrenaline pumping through their veins. The Typhians, momentarily cut off from their communication network, would have to scramble to re-establish control. The humans had just delivered their first strike. "We did it," Alex said, his voice a mix of relief and triumph. "This is only the beginning." As the group retreated back to their hideout, the sense of hope among them had shifted. They had struck back, and they would do it again. The Typhians may have hunted humanity, but now humanity was learning to hunt them back. The small victory against the Typhians felt like a spark in the darkness. After weeks of hiding, scavenging, and surviving, Alex and his team had struck their first blow. But the battle was far from over. The aliens were relentless, their hunting parties still combing the towns and cities, and their technology remained superior. It was clear to Alex. The humans had to keep evolving if they were going to have any hope of defeating the invaders. The team had learned something valuable from their encounter with the alien communication station. The Typhians had weaknesses, even if they weren't immediately obvious. The tech they used to track and hunt humans was sophisticated, but it wasn't infallible. Their comm systems were vulnerable, and their ships, though formidable, weren't impenetrable. Alex gathered the survivors in their hideout the following evening, the warehouse now home to a growing network of resistance fighters. "We're not going to win by running and hiding," he said, his voice steady but intense. "We need to take the fight to them. We know they have weaknesses. It's time we use those against them." The survivors were quiet, uncertain. They had seen the Sci-Fians up close, felt the terror of being hunted. Even after their success with the comm station, the odds still seemed insurmountable. But there was something in Alex's voice, something that sparked the will to fight back. They had already done the impossible once. Could they do it again? "We need to target their supply lines," Alex continued. "Take out their weapons depots, their energy sources. We'll start small, hit them where it hurts, and keep pushing. Every time we strike, we get stronger. We disrupt their operations, and eventually, they'll start to panic." His plan was risky. No one had ever faced an enemy like the Sci-Fians before. Their ships were armed with devastating weapons, and their hunters were nearly indestructible. But there was one thing that Sci-Fians didn't understand about humans. The more they pushed, the more they provoked humanity's ingenuity and resilience. Alex had seen it in the survivors. People who had once been terrified were now showing the first signs of determination. "All right," Alex said, eyes scanning the room. "Here's the first target. A Scythian weapons depot. It's located just outside the city. We've got to hit it fast, disable their tech, and get out before they know we were ever there. We'll be in and out before they can respond." The group nodded, the fear slowly replaced by resolve. Emma, the tech specialist, would take point on hacking into the Sci-Fian systems again. This time, they planned to target the aliens' energy reserves and disrupt their weapons grid. With the humans armed with alien weapons and their growing knowledge of enemy tactics, it seemed possible. Over the next few days, the team moved in shadows, gathering intel and preparing. The Sci-Fians had grown bolder since their first encounter with the Resistance, but they were still underestimating humanity. They hadn't fully realized that the hunted were now becoming the hunters. The night of the raid came quickly. Alex's team, now a more cohesive and confident unit, set out under the cover of darkness. Emma had located a gap in the Scythian security, a blind spot they could exploit. The humans made their way to the weapons depot, an enormous, heavily guarded structure surrounded by automated defense systems and Scythian sentries. "We stick to the plan," Alex whispered, his voice calm despite the tension. "We hit hard, we hit fast, and we get out. No heroics." As they neared the depot, Alex's heart pounded in his chest. The team was quiet, moving in a well-practiced formation. Emma, her fingers nimble and steady, worked to disable the security grid, bypassing the alien encryption with a skill that still amazed Alex. Moments later, they were inside. The depot was a sprawling labyrinth of high-tech machinery and weapon caches. Scythian soldiers moved through the complex, unaware of the humans creeping closer. The team worked with practiced precision, setting charges on key systems, disabling the alien tech that powered the weapons and energy shields. It was going too smoothly. Alex couldn't help but wonder how long it would take for the Sci-Fians to realize something was wrong. Then the alarms sounded. "Time's up," Alex muttered. "Move, move, move." The humans scattered, sprinting through the complex, triggering explosions behind them. The first wave of Sci-Fians appeared, their towering figures silhouetted against the orange glow of the fires. The humans fought back with everything they had, using their alien tech to disable the hunters. There was no time to think about how far they had come, only about surviving and making sure the mission was a success. As they raced for the exit, the depot shook with the force of a final explosion. The Sci-Fians would be left with a crippled weapons depot, their military capabilities severely damaged. Humanity had just struck another blow. Out in the night, breathing heavily, Alex glanced back at the burning facility. The Sci-Fians had no idea what they had just unleashed. "We've got their attention now," Alex said, the first hint of a smile tugging at his lips. The explosion at the Scythian weapons depot sent shockwaves through the alien forces. Alex's team had successfully crippled one of their key supply lines, and for the first time, the resistance could see the fear in the eyes of the invaders. The humans, once terrified and helpless, had now become an unpredictable threat. In the days that followed, the resistance continued to grow. Word of their victories spread, and more survivors came out of hiding to join the fight. Some were civilians who had lost everything to the alien hunters, while others were former military personnel who had managed to escape the initial slaughter. They all shared the same determination: to reclaim their world. But with every victory came greater risk. The Scythians were not known for their mercy, and they had taken notice of the escalating human resistance. Alex knew it wouldn't be long before they retaliated with everything they had. "We need to be ready for what's coming," Alex said, standing before the growing group of fighters gathered in their hideout. "They're not going to let this go. They'll send more hunters, more advanced tech. We've got to stay one step ahead." Emma, who had become the group's tech expert, nodded in agreement. "We've learned a lot from their systems, but they've also learned from us. They'll adapt quickly. We need to be smarter, faster." Alex's eyes narrowed. He had seen this kind of strategy before, where the enemy adjusted to every move, countering with even more force. But humanity wasn't done. They couldn't be. The Scythians had underestimated the human spirit for too long. The next plan was even more daring. They had located its Scythian command center, a heavily fortified structure situated in a remote region. It was responsible for coordinating their operations on Earth, a critical nexus for their entire invasion. If they could destroy it, they would disrupt the aliens' ability to coordinate their forces, buying humanity more time to organize and retaliate. "We'd hit the command center. We cripple their leadership," Alex explained. "Without it, they'll be disorganized. This is our chance to put them on the defensive." But the plan was risky. The command center was protected by a dense network of Scythian soldiers, advanced shields, and automated drones. It was nearly impenetrable. To even get close, they would need to infiltrate deep into Scythian-held territory. The resistance had to move quickly, using every ounce of the alien technology they had scavenged. They couldn't afford any mistakes. Alex and his team spent days preparing for the assault, gathering intel, and ensuring they had all the resources they needed. It was a team effort, with everyone playing their part. Emma worked on hacking into the Scythian security systems, while the rest of the group trained with the weapons and strategies they had learned. This time, they wouldn't be caught off guard. The night of the attack, the team set out under the cover of darkness. Alex led the charge, his focus razor-sharp. The journey to the command center was long, their movements deliberate and cautious. The air was thick with tension as they neared the heart of enemy territory. Finally, they'd reached the outer perimeter of the command center, a fortress-like compound guarded by armed Scythian soldiers and deadly automated defense systems. Alex could feel the weight of the mission pressing on him. They had no backup, no reinforcements. It was them against the full might of the invaders. "We stick to the plan," Alex said, his voice low but filled with resolve. "We get in, we plant the explosives, and we get out. Fast." The group infiltrated the compound, their movements swift and silent. Emma hacked into the security systems, disabling cameras and opening gates. Alex and the others moved through the shadows, avoiding patrols and taking down sentries without a sound. It was a dangerous game, but they were getting closer. Then, disaster struck. As they neared the main control room, one of the automated drones spotted them. The high-pitched alarm blared, and the compound's defenses activated. The team scrambled, taking cover as the first wave of Scythian soldiers appeared, their weapons crackling with energy. "We don't have time," Alex shouted, his voice sharp with urgency. "Plant the explosives now." Emma, her hands shaking but steady, set the charges on the command center's central core. The others held off the Typhians as best they could, their alien weapons lighting up the darkened halls. Each shot was a calculated move, every second critical. The sound of the countdown echoed in Alex's mind. He knew they had to get out. Now. "Let's go," he barked, leading the retreat as the explosives began to tick down. The Scythians, in their panic, were disorganized. But they weren't done yet. More soldiers appeared from every direction, closing in on them. Alex's heart pounded as he pushed the team through the halls. Explosions shook the compound as the charges detonated, sending shockwaves through the walls. The command center was crumbling, and the resistance fighters raced against time to escape. As they reached the outer gates, the world around them erupted in fire and debris. The command center was gone, a massive plume of smoke rising into the sky. The Typhians had lost their foothold in the region. They were disoriented. For the first time, Alex allowed himself to feel a fleeting sense of victory. "Mission accomplished," he said, breathing heavily, but a grim smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. But he knew this was just the beginning. The Scythians wouldn't stop. They would regroup, adapt, and return with vengeance. And so would humanity. The destruction of the Scythian command center sent ripples through the invaders' ranks. The resistance had achieved the impossible. The heart of their operation had been obliterated. Communications were disrupted, and their soldiers scrambled to regroup. For the first time, the Scythians were on the back foot. But Alex knew it wouldn't last long. The invaders would adapt quickly, and their retaliation would be brutal. The human resistance had won a major battle, but the war was far from over. In the days that followed, Alex and his team took refuge in a remote underground bunker. They had fewer supplies now, but the victory gave them a renewed sense of purpose. The Scythians weren't just invaders anymore. They were an endangered species, forced to regroup and rethink their tactics. But Alex could see the signs of their counteroffensive. Their ships had increased in number, and the air was thick with tension. The calm before the storm had passed. "We've kicked the hornet's nest," Alex said, staring at a map strewn with notes and intel. The resistance had grown, but they still lacked the resources to mount a large-scale offensive. The Scythians were many, and their technology was far superior. Emma, who had become the group's strategist and tech expert, looked over the data. "They're preparing something big. There's a gathering of Scythian ships off the coast. Something's coming. They're going to hit us hard." Alex's gaze hardened. He knew what that meant. The Scythians had been forced into retreat, but they had learned from their previous mistakes. They were likely preparing a full-scale assault to crush humanity's newfound resistance. This time, they wouldn't be caught off guard. "We need to make our last stand," Alex said, the weight of the decision settling on him. "This is it. We fight back, or we fall. But we're not going down without a fight." The resistance fighters looked at one another, their faces a mixture of fear and determination. They had already lost so much. Friends, family, entire cities. But in Alex's voice, they could hear the unwavering resolve that had guided them through every battle. If humanity was going to survive, they would have to give everything. The plan was risky, but it was their only shot. The Scythians had concentrated their forces near a heavily fortified base along the coast, an enormous shipyard that had been the center of their operations. If they could infiltrate the base and destroy the alien fleet, it would cripple their ability to launch a large-scale attack. But getting close to the shipyard would be nearly impossible. The area was crawling with Scythian soldiers, advanced weaponry, and automated defenses. "We'll hit them where they least expect it," Alex said, his mind racing through their options. "We need to cause a diversion, something big enough to draw their attention away from the main targets. Then we infiltrate and destroy the fleet. The ships go down, and their attack is over before it even begins." As they prepared for the assault, the atmosphere among the resistance fighters shifted. They were no longer just survivors. They were warriors. The fear was still there, but it was tempered with a fierce desire to win. Each person knew that their part in this battle would determine the fate of humanity. There was no turning back. The night before the assault, Alex gathered his team together. They stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the coast, the faint glow of the Cephian ships visible in the distance. The air was heavy with anticipation. "This is it," Alex said, his voice low but steady. "We've come a long way, from being hunted to becoming the hunters. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember, we fight for each other. We fight for every life that's been lost, for every person still out there. Humanity is more than just survival. We're a force that can change the future." One by one, the fighters nodded, their resolve solidifying. The coming battle would test them in ways they had never imagined, but they had come too far to turn back now. "We take the fight to them," Alex said. "We show them what it means to mess with humanity." With their final preparations in place, the resistance moved out under the cover of night. The enemy's forces were concentrated, but Alex's team was ready. This would be their last stand, a fight for the future of Earth. As they made their way toward the shipyard, every step felt heavier than the last. But each person knew that the fate of their world rested on their shoulders. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to win. The storm was coming, and humanity was ready to face it head-on. The night was thick with tension as Alex's team moved toward the Cephian shipyard. The air felt charged, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for the first strike. The resistance fighters, now battle-hardened and resolute, moved in silence, their footsteps barely making a sound against the earth. The time for hesitation had long passed. This was the moment when humanity would either rise from the ashes or be completely crushed under the aliens' relentless force. "Stay sharp," Alex whispered, leading the way. "We can't afford to make any mistakes." Emma, her eyes glued to a small device that pinged with vital intel, nodded grimly. "The perimeter's tighter than I thought. There's a heavy presence, even for them. But I've pinpointed a breach, on the east side. We'll have to move fast." The shipyard loomed ahead, its towering structures silhouetted against the starless sky. The glow from the Cephian ships, massive, intimidating, cast an eerie light across the battlefield. Hundreds of ships, still under construction or being readied for launch, were parked along the massive docks. It was a testament to the aliens' vast military might, and it was a target Alex could not ignore. "Once we're inside the perimeter, we disable their comms," Alex ordered. "Then we split into two teams. One hits the main control center, the other takes out the hangar. We cripple their fleet and their ability to launch." They made their way toward the breach, every step deliberate and cautious. The Typhians, though powerful, had made a crucial mistake. They had underestimated the tenacity of humanity. The resistance knew their systems better now, had learned to move in the shadows. They weren't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to win. As they neared the perimeter, Emma set to work, hacking into the security system with quiet efficiency. The gates clicked open, and the team slipped inside, moving like shadows. The first sign that the Typhians were aware of their presence came when the sirens wailed, shrill and urgent. But by then, it was too late. The team had already infiltrated the shipyard, and chaos erupted around them. Blasts of alien energy filled the air as Cephian soldiers scrambled to form a defense. "Go!" Alex yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We stick to the plan. Hit them hard." The two teams split, moving in opposite directions. Alex led the charge toward the hangar, where the massive Cephian warships were being prepared for launch. His group blasted through the reinforced doors, using alien weapons to create a breach. The alien soldiers stationed inside fought back fiercely, but the humans were relentless. For the first time, the aliens saw what it was like to face an enemy who would not bend, who would not break. Alex's heart raced as he stormed through the corridors, cutting down anyone who stood in their way. They had to be fast. Every second counted. The fleet had to be destroyed before it could be launched. Meanwhile, Emma's team made their way to the control center. The stakes were just as high for them. If they couldn't disrupt the Cephian's command network, the entire mission could fail. Emma was focused, fingers flying over the interface of an alien console, hacking into systems faster than Alex thought possible. "I'm in," she said, her voice steady despite the pressure. "I'm disabling their fleet coordination and command protocols. This should buy us some time." It was a risky move. If she was detected, the entire shipyard would be alerted to their presence. But Emma knew that if they didn't act quickly, the Cephians would regain control. Back at the hangar, Alex's team planted explosives on the key targets, the ship's engines, their fuel reserves, and their launch pads. The sound of gunfire and explosions reverberated through the hangar as the resistance fighters planted their charges. "Almost there," Alex said, his voice gruff as he peered through the thick smoke. "Everyone ready." The timer on the explosives ticked down. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Without warning, the ground shook as the first set of charges detonated. The hangar erupted in a fireball of light and sound. The Cephian warships, once poised for a devastating strike, were reduced to burning wreckage. The impact of the blast sent a shockwave through the facility, and Alex felt the force ripple through his chest. The mission was succeeding. But the Cephians were not done. In their fury, they launched their final wave of retaliation. A new fleet of smaller, faster ships appeared above them, swooping down toward the shipyard, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. Their command network was in disarray, and their primary fleet had been destroyed. "We've done it." Emma's voice crackled through Alex's comm. "Their command center is offline. They're scattered." Alex's breath came in heavy bursts as he turned to survey the devastation around him. The shipyard, once a hub of Cephian power, was now in ruins. But even as victory seemed within reach, Alex knew that this was only one battle in a much larger war. The Cephians wouldn't give up easily. "We've won today," Alex said, his voice resolute. "But this fight is far from over." The victory at the Cephian shipyard was more than just a tactical win. It was a declaration. The aliens had seen the power of humanity's resolve, the fury of a species that had been pushed to the brink. Yet, in the back of Alex's mind, a warning gnawed at him. This wasn't the end. The Cephians would regroup. They always did. Alex stood with his team at the edge of the ruined shipyard, the remnants of alien warships still burning in the distance. The sky was now streaked with smoke and ash, casting an eerie red glow over the battlefield. The air was thick with the scent of fire and destruction, a smell that had become all too familiar. Despite the victory, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was yet to come. "Good job, everyone," Alex said, his voice calm but heavy with fatigue. "We've struck a blow they'll feel, but we can't let up. The Cephians won't just disappear." The team nodded, their faces hard and tired, but there was a sense of pride in their eyes. They had faced impossible odds and come out on top. Once again, they had taken down a powerful enemy force, but Alex knew that the Cephians were far from broken. They were relentless, adaptable. Their time on Earth had shown them how dangerous humanity could be when cornered. "We need to take this momentum and push forward," Emma said, wiping sweat from her brow as she surveyed the damage. "But we can't do it alone. We need more support. If we're going to stop them for good, we need to bring the rest of the world into this fight." Alex agreed. The resistance had grown, but they still lacked the resources and numbers to take on the full might of the Cephian Empire. Earth's remaining military forces were scattered and disjointed, barely holding on in the face of an overwhelming invasion. Yet now they had something the aliens couldn't take away: the knowledge that humanity was capable of fighting back. They had to unite every last person still alive into one global resistance, one force strong enough to strike at the heart of the Cephians. It's time to hit them where it hurts, Alex said, turning toward the map displayed on his holoscreen. We'll target their supply lines, their communications hubs. But we need to do it in a way they'll never expect. They think they can crush us with sheer force, but we've shown them we can take down their fleets. Now we show them we can take down their empire. But as Alex plotted their next move, a sudden crackling noise came over his comm unit. Emma's face went pale. "Alex," she said, her voice tight with disbelief. "You need to see this." She handed him the device, and his eyes narrowed as he scanned the incoming transmission. It was a message from the Sci-Fians, their alien leader speaking with cold, calculated menace. "Humanity," the voice boomed across the transmission, its tone both mocking and furious. "You have struck a blow, yes, but you will learn soon enough that the Sci-Fians do not fear defeat. You are nothing but insects to us, ants scrambling beneath our feet. This world is ours. We will take it back, piece by piece, until there is nothing left of your pathetic resistance. And when we are done, your species will cease to exist." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving a silence that felt heavier than any bomb blast. Alex clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. The Sci-Fians were angry, more dangerous than ever. But that message, that taunt, wasn't just a threat. It was a challenge. "They're coming for us," Alex said, his voice low and determined. "And they'll hit us harder than ever before. But they're making one big mistake." "What's that?" asked Emma. "They think we're weak. They think we're broken. But they've underestimated humanity." The words were more than just a rallying cry. They were a promise. The Sci-Fians had destroyed entire cities, wiped out millions of people, and left Earth on the brink of extinction. But in every piece of destruction, humanity had found something new, the will to fight back. They had no choice but to stand and fight, and in doing so, they had become something far more dangerous than the Sci-Fians had ever expected. "We're not done yet," Alex said, his voice fierce. "We've only just begun." With a new sense of urgency, the resistance moved into action. They coordinated with other factions around the world, those who had hidden, those who had survived, those who had kept the fight going in secret. The global resistance network was growing, and they were ready to strike again. But this time, the stakes were even higher. The Sci-Fians wouldn't just be angry. They would be desperate. The final battle was approaching. The weeks that followed the Sci-Fians' taunting broadcast were filled with preparation. The resistance had grown, pulling together every last scrap of humanity's strength. From scattered underground bunkers to hidden military strongholds, the world's remnants had formed a united front. Every nation, every group, every survivor was now part of a single global effort to reclaim Earth. Alex stood at the forefront of this new world order. It was a far cry from the chaos of those first days, when the Sci-Fians had hunted humanity for sport. Now it was the humans who had become the hunters. The resistance had managed to establish a network of communications, a patchwork system of hacked alien tech, satellite networks, and human ingenuity. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Through this system, they coordinated attacks, disrupted Scythian operations, and sent vital intel to the farthest reaches of the planet. They were no longer a scattered, weak resistance. They were a force to be reckoned with. But Alex knew that the time for guerrilla tactics was coming to an end. The Sci-Fians were preparing for their final assault, gathering their forces for one massive strike. They were done playing games. Their warships, now fully operational, were on their way, poised to decimate what little remained of humanity's strongholds. Alex couldn't help but think back to the words of the Scythian leader. "You are nothing but insects." The arrogance of the alien overlords, the belief that they could crush humanity once and for all. It fueled his determination. "Time's almost up," Alex said, turning to Emma, who was scanning the latest intel reports. "We've done all we can. The Scythians are coming for Earth, but they're going to face something they never expected." Emma met his gaze, her eyes filled with resolve. They think they can just wipe us out with a big final blow. But they don't know what we're capable of. We've got one shot, Alex said, pacing in the small command center. We hit them hard, disrupt their fleet, and make sure they can't land their forces. We've got the element of surprise on our side. The final strike would be a daring one. An all-out assault on the Scythian flagship, the Skrathar, the massive warship that had been the centerpiece of their invasion strategy. If they could destroy it, they could cripple the entire Scythian force. But doing so would require breaking into the heart of the enemy's command structure, bypassing their defenses, and planting explosives inside their most heavily fortified vessel. We're ready, Emma confirmed, tapping commands into her console. The charges are prepped, and the team is set. We'll have only a small window before they realize what's happening. Alex took a deep breath. The odds were staggering, but there was no other choice. Humanity's fate rested in their hands. We take down the Skrathar. We end this war, he said firmly. With a determined nod from his team, they set their plan into motion. In the dead of night, the resistance forces gathered, moving swiftly under the cover of darkness. They were preparing to infiltrate the Scythian stronghold and plant the final blow. Alex's heart pounded in his chest as they approached the launch site, a vast alien structure that had once felt like an impenetrable fortress. Now, it was just another target. The mission was fraught with danger. The closer they got, the stronger the alien defenses became. Automated drones, advanced weaponry, and Scythian soldiers patrolled the area in near-perfect formation. But Alex's team was ready. They were smarter, faster, and more determined than ever before. We hit them fast and hard, Alex said, looking at his team one last time before they made their move. We breached the outer defenses, get inside, and plant the charges. This is our one shot. No hesitation. They infiltrated the compound with precision, using stealth and the element of surprise to cut down the Scythians guarding the area. The air crackled with tension as they approached the Skrathar, now looming above them like a mountain of alien technology. Alex's mind raced. One mistake, and it was over. As they reached the ship's docking bay, they encountered the final line of defense. A massive Scythian soldier, twice the size of a human, blocked their path, his weapon crackling with deadly energy. Fall back! Alex shouted, but there was no time to retreat. The resistance fighters had to move now. With a surge of adrenaline, Alex led the charge, his team engaging the alien in a battle for their lives. The clash was brutal, but humanity's fighters were no longer scared. They were the ones in control. With a final, explosive strike, they brought the Scythian soldier down. It was their opening. We've got to move now, Alex yelled as the countdown timer on the explosives began ticking down. The team raced toward the heart of the Skrathar, setting the final charges in place. The ship groaned in protest as the explosives detonated, sending shockwaves throughout the massive vessel. The Scythian's most powerful weapon was in its final moments. Alex and his team didn't look back as they made their escape. The explosion tore through the Skrathar, the ship disintegrating into a fiery wreckage. The shockwave rippled through the alien fleet. The resistance had dealt the decisive blow. The war was over.